I'm Mary Claire Murphy, and this is a special Mother's Day edition of Classical Conversations. I'm speaking with Yolanda Kondonassis, who is a harp performer and a businesswoman and a mother. She wears many, many hats. Today, we are learning about her new single called Wildflower by Arturo Sandoval. And it's going to be the perfect way to celebrate the mother figures in our lives and also just the beauty and the arrival of springtime. So, Yolanda, welcome and thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's just start with a little bit of backstory. I'd love to hear more about your experience with music growing up and what drew you to the harp specifically.
Well, since we're talking about Mother's Day, playing harp was kind of my mom's idea. I began as a pianist. She was my first piano teacher. I grew up in Norman, Oklahoma. And the time came when she thought I should pick up a second instrument. I was about 9 years old. And, kids don't often think of all the options out there. And she thought it would be great if I took up the harp. I honestly, secretly, I think she thought it might refine me a bit. I was still at an age where I was doing a lot of playing in the dirt and, tomboyish activities. And I think she thought she might be able to get me in a dress once in a while for recitals and such. So maybe that was her ulterior motive, but she was also a great lover of all things unique. And I've often said that even if I had begged her to play the violin or the flute or the clarinet or something, I think that would not have passed muster with her. She probably loved the uniqueness of the harp. And, I was a practical kid. And so I thought to myself, maybe the road less traveled is not a terrible idea here. So.
Wow. So it sounds like music then has been very much woven into your life as every fiber of your being, I guess, so to speak. It's been around for a long time. The fact that your mother introduced you to that and nurtured you, it sounds like in the early stages of your music career. That's beautiful. I do want to bring up, as I mentioned at the beginning, you are a businesswoman and founded the nonprofit Earth at Heart. And I'm wondering what impassioned you to start that business venture and what's your mission with Earth at Heart?
Well, Earth at Heart is a nonprofit organization, a foundation that I started, oh gosh, going on probably getting close now to about 10 years ago. And the mission of Earth at Heart is to inspire earth conservation, awareness, and action through the arts. And it's kind of born of the idea that when we see an idea or thought or a worthy cause expressed in the language of the arts, sometimes we're a lot more likely to internalize that and feel invested in it than if we just hear facts and, alarming as they are, especially when it comes to earth matters. I really wanted to find a way to connect the thing that I'm most passionate about, which is music and the arts, with something I'm also very passionate about, which is earth conservation. And honestly, this year, the Earth Day theme was restore our earth. And at this point, we've kind of zipped right by conserve, preserve, protect our earth and kind of gotten to the point where we need to restore it. So I think there's never been a time when we need all sectors, business, arts, education, just everything, manufacturing, anything out there needs to have, earth restoration at the front of its mind. And the way that this project, which is an initiative of Earth at Heart, my foundation, it's called 5 Minutes for Earth. And I released an album last spring on Earth Day that features 15 brand new world premieres written for solo harp that all those composers donated. They waived their commission fees. And this is quite an amazing group of folks. I think I expected to get maybe 5 or 6 yeses. All I hoped was I'd have enough for an album. We have so much more than enough for an album, which is why now we're releasing singles as well, and probably do another album at some point in the future, or, you know, 5 Minutes for Earth Volume 2. But the idea between you know, inspiring and connecting people to Earth causes and actually connecting that to action is that for each future performance of any of these works in the 5 Minutes collection, which this new release coming out in a couple of weeks is also, is that for every performance in the future by any artist anywhere in the world that is verified on the Earth at Heart website hub, a donation will be made by my foundation, Earth at Heart, in honor of that performance. So it's both inspiring audiences, getting people talking about it, thinking about it, and also translating that into monetary assistance. We need both. It's almost like matching contributions for artists. You donate through your art and we'll turn that into a monetary donation. So I think it's kind of a neat idea, and it's just really getting its momentum. We just made our first donation. The sheet music hasn't even been up for, I don't know, a few weeks, and we just made our first donation to the Nature Conservancy. So it feels pretty good, and I'm hoping it'll really catch on.
Yeah, so that definitely is such a neat idea, and I'm glad that you're getting so much momentum on that as well. Let's talk about this single in particular, Wildflower. And I'm curious about what Wildflower means to you. When I was listening to it, it definitely it was very evocative, brought a lot of memories to mind and experiences in nature. In particular, there was a time that I went hiking on Isle Royal with some family, and I was we were a couple days in, we pitched our tent and we're watching the sunset over the water. Next to me was this tiny purple flower, just like sprung right out of a boulder. And I was amazed, enamored with this little flower, that it was both so delicate, it was so fragile, and at the same time very hardy to be just growing straight out of a boulder. So I feel like, I don't know, people are a lot that way too, and life in general is so fragile and also surprisingly hardy. So that's kind of what was running through my mind as I was listening. But what does Wildflower symbolize for you?
Well, I just love all that you just said, because it's so intuitive, and it's so close to the way I feel about this as well. Because when this piece came to me, it was kind of I'd say about 3/4 of the way through the pandemic, the thick of it. And as I started just slogging through it, as we do with new pieces, just getting the lay of the land, thinking, okay, what do I do here? Instantly, I felt a connection to my mom, because she loved this kind of music. I would describe this as kind of cinematic, jazz inspired, romantic, contemporary music that it's kind of an earworm, little pieces of it get stuck in your head. And it's almost like Mancini meets Burt Bacharach meets Marvin Hamlish meets Arturo Sandoval, jazz icon, and he's the man who wrote it. And my mom loved that stuff. And, as I was working it through and bringing it to, the level I needed it, it became hers somehow. That's what she would play at the end of a long day of piano teaching, just to kind of decompress. That's the kind of stuff she would play. And my mom died of Alzheimer's about 11 years ago. And, it's a rough disease. That's a rough disease. And I felt like the process of learning this piece reconnected me with her before the disease. And that's sometimes a hard thing to do. And music can do that, though. And I remember feeling that way very strongly last spring. And then we recorded it in June. And your story, it's sort of a personal one, but it inspires me to tell a little story of my own, which is I had just finished recording it, and I went to go visit my dad in Oklahoma. And every time I go to Oklahoma, I visit my mom's gravesite. And I went there, and I was just sitting there, having my little conversation. And, I got up and I sort of walked around a minute, and I noticed, you mentioned those little purple flowers, very manicured cemetery, no weeds. It was not a place where they let things get out of control. But on top, right behind the gravestone, was just a little patch of purple flowers that had just sprouted up from that plot. And, my mom was a bit of a wildflower. She was definitely a ferocious spirit. And, I don't know why that was meaningful to me. Not another single purple flower in the whole place, except right there. And, that idea of things being both fragile and hardy, I think the human spirit is certainly that. And I think this piece just celebrates not just my mom's spirit, but it's a mixture of, it's so beautiful to listen to, but it's lush and it's triumphant and it's melancholy and it's sentimental and it's romantic, and it just sort of moves through these atmospheres seamlessly. And it could kind of be the soundtrack of an interesting life.
Absolutely. What do you think your mom might say to you listening to this recording you have?
Oh, my mom was a colorful person. She might say, "Boy, that's my cup of tea. Do more of that.
Encore."
Coming, yeah, it's, but pieces like this every piece is so unique. And while this is by no means an imitation of anything, it's very much, there's even little flavor of the Latin jazz in there at one or two moments. It's very, very much original to Arturo, but I think it's like any great piece of music that once in a while drops a little bit of the familiar, and you say to yourself for just a second, oh, I've been there before. And then it goes on and you think, well, I've been somewhere like that before, maybe. And it triggers memories, almost like fragrances or smells. It's just like a little snip of something that opens a portal in your mind to some memory you may have long forgotten,
For sure. Thinking about that style that Arturo uses, would you say that's unusual in the harp repertoire? Have you seen a combination like this before?
Well, there is a lot of expansion in the genres that are used on the harp. And I think it's fabulous. So many, people early in their careers are really doing a lot of cross-genre work. And I love it. The thing I would say about this that I appreciate so much is that this is, of course, I'm classically trained. And this allows me to both kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, sort of wail technically. It's you need some chops to play this piece. It's not an easy little number, but at the same time, it's like got all that wonderful, accessible sonic world that, it really is. I love this music. When I'm just riding around in my car, I don't listen to too much classical music because I concentrate on it a little bit too much. I've had a few too many music history courses and form and analysis. It's too present. So, I've got my Bruno Mars cranked up and that's what I listen to in the car. And it's that music that just, it feeds a little bit of adrenaline, and it's memory inducing. It's like a time stamp. And I know this piece is going to be like that for me. When I, catch myself on the radio, I'm going to be, I'll listen to the whole thing. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I say, I don't need to listen to myself. But this one I'll listen to it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned needing some chops for this one, and I know that you also have a book about writing well for the modern harp. So I was curious about maybe some challenges in harp composition, I guess, in the process of composing for harp. Some of those challenges and how Arturo navigated those in this particular piece.
Well, I just had a wonderful conversation, a videotape conversation with Arturo that we're going to put out probably in a few days. It's very interesting because he talks about his process in this. And when I asked him, what were you thinking of? Because honestly, I with every piece, I fiddle with it a little bit to make sure that it's idiomatic. And, my feeling is that I want any new work that I bring to life, that I commission, I want it to be not just played by me. I want it to, be an addition to the repertoire. And so I always do that. But honestly, his piece works remarkably well. I mean, you've got to practice it. But I never want easy music. The goal is idiomatic. And in this book I wrote, I think the one you're thinking of, it's called Composer's Guide to Writing Well for the Modern Harp. And, it had kind of been writing itself in my head for 25 years, because harpists, I think, are uniquely positioned sometimes to play music that really is not at all idiomatic. It's not even written for the harp. Many composers write for the piano and kind of cross their fingers, or they write very simplistically, more simplistically than they need to. It's usually kind of either or, ridiculously impractical, or not exploring the boundaries of the instrument at all. And I guess my goal with this book was to give composers some news they can use, a really candid, organized guide with everything from cheat sheets to, reaches and figures and ranges. And I'd say the last quarter of the book is special effects and techniques and a description of how you do them. And then there's a video that goes with it so composers can hear everything. But the goal was idiomatic writing. We don't want it easy, but we want it idiomatic. And that is just understanding the instrument. And I think when it comes to the harp, there's probably no instrument out there that is less understood from a mechanical and a technical standpoint than the harp. But, hopefully that's changing, I think.
Yeah, what a useful resource it sounds like. Is there anything else that you would like to mention about Wildflower or this process, or anything else about the 5 minutes for Earth that we've talked about?
Well, I feel like artists today, the great synergy is when you can combine your art with a passion that maybe feels a little bigger, a little farther reaching. And I'm just grateful I get to do this. It's not something I feel like I have to do. It's like, wow, I get to do this. I get to bring all these new works to life and hopefully get people talking and thinking about it, and, turn that into some monetary assistance for causes that are making a difference as it relates to the earth. And then, with Wildflower, I mean, this is, even though it's part of the 5 minutes collection, it feels really personal. I mean, for the reasons I've described, this is a personal one. And it comes out on Mother's Day weekend, Friday, May 12th. And there will also there is already, I think it's out there, a video. There's a video that goes with every piece in the 5 minutes collection, because it's just another layer of absorbing, the art and the work. And this one is it's mothers and daughters in nature, and it's very personal. And, it's gotten very, very difficult to give the gift of music. We don't really, we stream everything that anyone wants to hear. They can just push a couple buttons and hear. It's no longer a thing where you can give somebody a CD as a gift or something like that. But if folks are looking for a gift to give their mother, maybe the link to that Wildflower video that's on my YouTube channel might be a nice one, because I kind of tear up when I look at it. And,
Yeah.
mother-daughter relationships are always complicated. I don't know of too many that are not. There is such intense love, such ferocious, intense love. But it's a relationship like none other. I'm a mom too. I'm a mom of a daughter, and I'm a daughter to a mom. And that positioning, I think, is one of great appreciation for both ends. I'm kind of in the middle, and I have immense respect for both daughters and mothers.
Are there aspects of your relationship from your mother that you want to carry through to your relationship with your daughter?
Oh, absolutely. That connection and that, I guess with my daughter, my operating principle has just always been it. I've not read every parent book in the universe, and I have not been, a tough love parent, and I've not used a lot of parenting techniques, but my operating principle has always just been to love her to bits, and make sure she always knows that, and that no matter what, I'm in her corner. It's simple. I decided, you know what, I'm going to have to make this simple for myself. And I just always smothered her with love. And I do think that, at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure she's going to know she was loved.
Oh, Yolanda, you are such a breath of fresh air to speak with. Thank you for taking the time to tell us about Wildflower. It's been really great to hear from you. And we're looking forward to hearing more from you in the future as well. I hope we are able to connect again. And to all of our mothers listening right now, thank you for all that you do, the gifts that you share. A very happy Mother's Day from FM 91.
And a happy Mother's Day from me too. And thank you so much for the interest. It's been a pleasure.